Hello and welcome everybody again to Cooking with Ken. Chef Mark here bringing you some delicious and nutritious but simple cookery with these two squash I've got in front of me that are going to be starring today. I've got spaghetti squash that we're going to be using as a substitute to traditional spaghetti noodles. As the name implies, once we've gotten this cooked off, the flesh inside is going to come away in noodle-like strands. That'll be the base for our pasta. And then our butternut squash here is going to be the base for a butternut sage cream sauce. Now, to get started, I'm gonna get my spaghetti squash here, split in half, cut off the top and bottom ends. With squash, these are very hardy fruits, and these stems go a little further inside the flesh than you think, so just be mindful that you're not like cutting against a really firm and tough spot, otherwise you could chip the blade of your knife. I had that happen with one of mine not too long ago, so learn from my mistakes. Just going to split this in half lengthwise. From here, we've got to scrape all the seeds and guts out. Let me get a spoon for that. Much better. There. And you can already kind of see here in the squash that sort of noodle-like texture where it's trying to break away. And get that sat in our pan. Our squash are very dense fruits. So I'm going to cook these face down on the pan. What that is going to do is trap all the steam that would otherwise be escaping into the oven, and that's going to expedite the cooking process for our squash. Make things go faster. We don't like long waits in the kitchen when they can be avoided. I'm just going to rub that in and turn down. I'm going to get my hands washed, get my squash guts pitched or composted, and we'll come back to the butternut squash. Onto our butternut squash. Same thing's going to happen here. Cut off the top and bottom ends. But this we're going to peel the skin off of. It's very tough, quite inedible. Nobody wants butternut squash skin. Just peel away and expose that nice orange flesh underneath. And just be very careful as you're doing this. You can see there's this really nice shine and gloss on the squash. Squash leaks a lot of liquid, so it can be pretty slippery in hand. So just be mindful when you're peeling and gripping in these wet areas. There we go. And just like our spaghetti squash before, we're going to remove the seeds from here. Although the butternut squash has all of its seeds right down here in this bulbous portion of it. Cut that open. Scoop out. And these squash seeds, you don't have to pitch. These can also be roasted the same way you would make pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin is a squash as well. They will all handle the same, just with slight variations in flavor. There we go. Let's get all of this pitched. Now our squash here, we're going to get diced. Again, it's very, very dense, so be very careful cutting this. If you have a heavier knife on hand, I would strongly recommend using that. The weight is going to help you break through this dense fruit much more quickly. But also we're cutting this down so that it cooks faster. Again, we don't want to be waiting super long for our squash to cook. All of this is going to roast together for about 30 to 40 minutes total. Oh no. We can rinse that off. The great thing about raw fruits and vegetables. Just some large dice like so. It's gonna all go in the same pan as I go along. Oh yeah. You don't have to be particularly worried about the uniformity of the cuts on these, because again, this is all going to get blended up. Finished product is going to be a sauce, so how your dice looks does not matter at all. However, you want them to be uniformly the same size, just to make sure they're all cooking at the same time. You don't want some done, some underdone, and have a gritty sauce when you're finished. Now, just like our spaghetti squash, I'm going to get this coated in some olive oil and salt. We've got our oven preheated at 400 degrees. And again, these are going to roast for about 30 to 40 minutes. I'll check them after 30, and we'll see how they're looking. Now to get my hands washed off and the squash in the oven. Into the oven we go. I'm going to get a timer set on my phone for 30 minutes, and we'll come back to that in 30. It's been 30 minutes, so hopefully our squash are all done. If not, we'll peek back in after a few minutes, but they're looking pretty done. Some good caramelization happening on the pan. Now, just to test for doneness, I'm going to find one of the larger pieces on the tray. Just poke a fork through. It passes through just like butter, so it's definitely done. No resistance whatsoever. We'll do the same test on the spaghetti squash. Get that flipped over. Oh yeah, that's all good. I'm gonna get this pan turned around so I can start scraping my spaghetti squash noodles. And just like I said, scraping my fork through here, and these strands of spaghetti squash are peeling away very easily. Super simple, super easy, very minimum work required, even with your knife. There we go. Let's get our second. And just be careful that you don't get any skin mixed in with that noodle. Again, that's really tough, super inedible. Nobody's gonna like chewing on that. There, we've got our spaghetti squash done. It's time to make our sauce. Let's see how much total squash I have here. Some of these are a little more caramelized than others. I'm not too worried about that. It's not something that's going to so adversely affect the flavor of the finished product. That's about a quart or 4 cups of squash. All of this added in. And to that, I'm going to add half a cup of heavy cream and 1 cup of chicken stock. Now I've got some dried sage here from our last video of preserving herbs. I'm just going to put about 8 to 10 whole leaves in here. Oops. It's fine if we lose a little along the way. But sage is much more potent than you think. You don't need a lot in there. I've got 6 large cloves of garlic. And now we blend. I think that's as smooth as we're going to get. Now this is the consistency I'm looking for. Nice and thick for a sauce. You can smooth this out by straining it, but I'm not looking for a particularly smooth sauce and losing a lot of product, so I'm just going to go right into the pan with my sauce as is. I'm going to get this turned on to about medium heat. Now this should still be pretty warm. The squash did just come out of the oven a few minutes ago. So I'm not trying to cook it much, but I am going to melt in this Parmesan cheese, about 2 ounces that I've grated. And I'm just getting that melted in. I've got 2 tablespoons of butter here that we're going to finish with once the Parmesan's melted. You can see relatively quickly it's all starting to melt in. I don't know how well you can see it on camera, but I'm still seeing just a few shreds here and there. And once I've seen that all the Parmesan's melted in, I'm gonna add my butter, kill the heat, and we are done with the sauce. Now, so be sure that you're stirring fairly frequently, because this does have heavy cream in it, and I just added Parmesan. Dairy is going to scald much more readily on the bottom of your pan. So just watch vigilantly, stir vigilantly. I think our cheese is just about melted in. Lastly, butter. Come on. There we go. Now crack in a little pepper. And kill the heat. And just like that, our butternut squash sauce is done. Spaghetti squash is done and ready for plating. I've got a little extra Parmesan on hand, so why not grate some over top? Beautiful. Now let's dig in. That is a really good sauce. Got a nice punch of earthiness from the sage. A very nice and mellow sweetness from the butternut squash, and just a little bit of salty from the Parmesan. And a little extra sweetness from the spaghetti squash itself. And there you guys have it. A delicious, low-carb alternative to your traditional spaghetti. All right, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Chef Mark with Cooking with Ken. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button to keep up to date with anything we're posting. Go down in the comment section, let us know anything you'd like us to make in future videos. And we will see you next time.